Hello, everybody. Welcome to Matt's Chats. Today's guest is Magnetar. Magnetar, how are you?
I'm well, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So,
Yes.
what are you up to, man? What have you been up to?
Well, specifically, what I'm doing right now is trying this new Cheerios cinnamon and oats cereal. Cheerios is the new sponsor of the Magnetar. I'm kidding. No, I'm just having breakfast. I actually just got back from a vacation in Florida visiting my dad, who I haven't seen since last February, just before COVID hit. So that
Wow,
was that was nice. And I was able to get vaccinated before going, which is even doubly nice.
bro, that's awesome, man. How was it?
It was great. I'm not too big of a beach guy. I'm more of like a mountains or like Colorado-y kind of person.
Yeah, you're more of a hiker than a beach goer.
Yeah, I can't stand sand, but it was nice to see my dad and meet his partner, and he's got two blue and gold macaws, which are like
Ooh,
parrots, big parrots,
those
and
things are fucking awesome.
yeah, super cool, super expensive, and they're a lot of work to take care of, but it gives them something to do, and it's just cool to meet them and cool to see them again. So it was great.
Now, macaws, don't they? Aren't they a lot like parrots where they repeat what you say?
Yeah, exactly. So he's taught him a few phrases, and they live, I didn't know this, but he told me they live to be like 60, 70 years old, which is crazy. So these two that he got are like, one's 11 and one's 16, and he's almost 50. So they very well might outlive him.
Yes,
Um, yeah, it's wild to me. Think about that.
it's crazy. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a bird that lives for like 200 years. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but essentially it can live up to 200 years, and when you buy one, when you legally buy one, you're supposed to have like when you sign the document, you're supposed to have family that you can put on there to pass it
Wow.
down to.
I mean, that's smart though. I mean, so that these birds aren't just like abandoned and sent to a shelter or passed off to whoever doesn't really want them, and they're just kept in a cage all day, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. Good.
there was
I
one
mean,
back in Vermont or New Hampshire, or I lived in Vermont, but New Hampshire's like right next to it, as you may know. I say may. In Lebanon, the big city that everyone goes to in New Hampshire, um, there was a pet store that had a blue macaw. That's what it's called, a blue macaw,
mhm.
and they had one that actually lived there. Its owner had passed away, and it needed a place to go because no other family would take it in because no one wanted the responsibility. So you would see it flying around, and they had it like specially designed so it could sit in like this little tower and look outside. And one day it was there, one day it was gone, and they put like a fake one up there to replace it out of memory because everyone knew about the blue macaw that lived there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
and yeah, they're really cool birds, and I mean, I feel like we should do that for all animals that get adopted. I know a dog doesn't live near as long, but I think that's a great idea to have sort of like godparents
yeah,
for pets as you do a child, because I mean, for me, I have two dogs, my partner and I, and they're certainly family to
yeah,
me, and
oh
like
yeah.
I think I do that as children, so I'd want to make sure that they go to somebody that cares, and of course, I have family that cares, but some people might not have that.
Right. And you may have family that cares, but they may not have the financial or could not handle the responsibility of having animals.
That is absolutely true.
But yeah, so okay, so you taught a lot of your stories are about it's creepypastas and whatnot. You do some horror narrations, and I gotta ask, have you ever experienced something scary? This seems to be a very popular question.
Hmm. So when I think about the experience of something scary, to me that is something that's always grounded in reality. So I'm not a
Okay.
very spiritual person or anything like that. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in ghosts or demons or anything like that. We could have another conversation about what those could possibly be, aliens in a different dimension, what have you. But my scary experiences are certainly like grounded in reality, in the sense that like I've been in an instance where I'm on a highway or something like that and driving in ice and then like five cars in front of me just flip around and wreck, and then there's like a whole scene and a car catches on fire, like something like that I've experienced.
Oh, really? Tell us.
Yeah,
What was it
so
like
there
for
was
you?
horrifying. So I'm not someone who's like a nervous driver or anything like that, and I'm used to driving in ice and snow. But when I was in Colorado at the time working, and people just aren't, I guess like a lot of these tourists aren't used to driving in ice and stuff like that. And a car in front of me like hit, black ice and didn't know how to kind of control their vehicle, and it like flipped like three or four times, and then like landed on top of a smaller like coupe next to it, and then that car proceeded to bump another car, which hit a median, and then like the front was on fire. So like
Whoa.
that was a scary experience to me because like I mean, you could die obviously in a car
Yeah.
accident. And thankfully, I've never lost anybody in a car accident, but it's always on my mind, especially when you're kind of trusting other drivers, who are controlling these 5,000-pound hunks of metal going 80 on the highway. You don't know what the hell they're doing, if they're drunk, if they're under the influence of something, and you just got to kind of trust that everybody's gonna do what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So those are the kind of experiences that scare me. And you know humans, when humans are able to kind of have an influence over your life, because I don't think, and I was having this talk with my friend the other day, just like how much control any random person can have over your life or influence. Like I could be sitting here talking to you right now and someone could come bust down my door, shoot my dog, and light my car on fire, and then drop me $1 million. Like people can do, people have so much influence over your life. It's crazy. Like your entire life can change in an instant because of one person's actions. And that terrifies me.
I actually absolutely agree. I live in the state that was named the number one worst state to drive in, um,
Oh,
which is South Carolina. Yeah, I don't really hide what state I live in,
sure.
but I gotta tell you, I believe it. I believe
Yeah.
it. Some of these drivers don't even use their blinker, and they'll get like within inches of your vehicle to get in front of you.
Yeah. Do you
You
know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you know what classifies it as that? Is it just like accidents, just general like accidents per miles driven? Like what makes it dangerous? Is it the weather?
I don't know. I think it's the overall, how drivers respond down here and how they overall act. I think that's what the thing I looked at was. It was just generality, not like one specific statistic.
Well, I'll
Um,
make sure to avoid driving through South Carolina.
well, I live here, so that's kind of not possible. But I can tell you, as a Vermonter, where I've lived all my life, where everyone's generally respectful on the road up in Vermont. But coming down here, man, I don't even like driving down here. I don't even like putting my son in the car to go to the store, which is like 2 miles up the road, because
Hmm.
we live right next to the highway, and oh boy, oh boy, like we live in a 60 zone, and people go 75, 80 on average,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they'll cut you off with no blinker, nothing, and then honk at you for not
Like, how
allowing them to
dare
cut
you
you
be
off.
going the speed limit?
Right. I was going the speed limit one day because I had my son in the car, and I got honked at by three people for going the speed limit, and I was like, "What? That's
Yeah.
that's ridiculous."
Yeah, for me, it's flopped. I'm actually from Texas, and
Okay.
there, it's flat, dry all the time, pretty much. So people can go like 80 or 90 and like a 70 on the highway or what have you.
Mhm.
Uh, but I moved to DC in March of 2019, and it's been an adjustment for me. Like I've had to get used to driving slower because like even highways out here are only like 55, where I'm used to going 75 on the highways. Like that was what the speed limit was. It's not that I was speeding, that was the speed limit. So
Wow.
for me, it's kind of an adjustment of that, kind of getting used to slowing down a little bit, just like entirely like with just as a person and as I'm driving, just slowing down a little bit.
Oh man, it was an adjustment for me too coming down here because the average speed of a highway, like not a main highway, like not going from like state to state, but like what's it called? I can't remember the name of it. But the average speed was 40 to 45, right? The slow speed Here in South Carolina, it's 40 to 45. The average speed is 60 to 65.
Hmm.
And the highest speed you would reach on main highway up there was 60.
Yeah.
So even though it's a 5 mile per hour difference, that doesn't account for the people who are driving around you that all go like 70, 80 on average.
Yeah.
And the police allow it. I was there was one night I had a really bad day at work and I was driving home and I was not in the mood. I just wanted to get home and I found myself going 90. Like a really bad boy, and I know I shouldn't have been. But I drove right by a cop who was going 60 and he didn't care.
You're lucky, man.
Bro, so lucky.
I
So,
mean, yeah, go ahead.
you brought up that you don't believe in ghosts or demons, but you have an idea of what they could be. Let's talk about that. I feel like this would be a fun conversation.
Yeah, so and these are like the conversations I have with the boys, whatnot, at like 2 a.m. or anything, stuff like
Okay,
that. So,
okay.
I mean, obviously, I mean, based on my channel, I'm very interested in science fiction and space technology, aliens, alternate dimensions, so on and so forth. And, sometimes when you go down those like YouTube video rabbit holes, you hear all sorts of wild things. And something that's interesting to me is like, I don't think people that claim ghosts, I can't necessarily devalue their experience because, you can't necessarily say like you didn't see this, you know what I mean? I mean, there's obviously instances where it's like, oh, you're still like half asleep or you're hallucinating because of this or that. But
Right.
in general, there's a lot of people all over the world who say they see entities or have seen things like that. And some chalk it up to being ghosts, dead relatives, like it's always some lady in like an outfit from the 1700s for some reason, or like a World War or a Civil War veteran for whatever reason. I don't think that's what ghosts are. I don't think they're just spirits left over from somebody who died or who's like got unfinished business. If anything, to me, what it could be, maybe one of two things is what I like to think is that one, it's kind of parallel universes or multiple dimensions that kind of sometimes overlap on each other. And you can see like somebody who's living in the other like parallel dimension, if they're cooking and it kind of like crosses paths or something like that, you could see that person, like that entity there, doing whatever they do, cooking or walking around, whatever people say they see ghosts doing. Alternatively, we do know that there's like higher dimensions or different dimensions that possibly people, us as humans, cannot perceive. So what if there is like an alien race or some sort of other type of entity like that exists in those higher dimensions that we just can't perceive, and unless they want us to perceive them, or that there's some sort of, I don't know, glitch in the matrix, if you want to say that, and then you actually are able to perceive those aliens or those beings for a short time. Again, I don't subscribe to the idea that if my great grandfather died, he's going to come back to like look over my dog or whatever. You know what I mean? That's hard for me to believe. I'm a very skeptical person, and a lot of people say like, well, then how can you believe this thing about aliens or these multiple dimensions? And to me, that's more grounded in a scientific possibility. I mean, even though it's not proven yet, there is some numbers, kind of there's some ideas and thoughts and theories behind those theories that kind of back up the possibility of that being true, if that makes sense. I don't know if I just rambled, but
No, I actually like your rambling because it did make sense. I'm a believer in the possibility of anything because we don't know everything. Science cannot tell us everything. And I absolutely believe that there could be a logical explanation for what we're experiencing, but that science just maybe has not advanced enough for us to be able to figure out what exactly. I believe it could be parallel universes. I believe it could really be the dead coming back for a second. Who knows? But the possibilities are out there. And I like the way you look at it, to be honest with you, as more of a scientific nature way, because we just recently discovered a particle that was able to be seen in another dimension. I don't know if they meant like another dimension in the form of like another like world kind of dimension, or like another form of, 2D, 3D, 4D. But it would not surprise me if this was not the only universe. Like if there is a real multiverse to how we live our lives, that there could be.
Multiverse. That's the word I was thinking.
Oh, well, I'm glad I found it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the possibility of a multiverse is very real because we don't know enough about our universe to be able to say definitively one way or the other.
Yeah, of course. And even beyond the multiverse, there's the idea of that this whole universe that we're experiencing, this reality that we're experiencing is a simulation. So that in itself brings up a whole nother set of questions or possibilities. Like, is there a multiverse, but also we're in a simulation? So then there's another kind of higher plane that exists outside of our simulation. And then how many worlds exist within that reality of that simulation? And how far do the simulations go? It's just, yeah,
I
I
find
could
it
sit here and ramble
interesting.
about all that for hours.
I find it interesting that the average human believes in religions that focus around a god, right? The average human. But these people who are geniuses, scientists, even Elon Musk, believe that we could be living in a simulation rather than us have been created by a god.
Yeah.
And that makes you wonder, what do they know that we don't know?
I mean, they are oftentimes, sometimes not all of the hugely intelligent people are filthy rich, but a lot of the people, like Elon Musk, obviously, he's I think, still the richest person in the world above
Him,
Bezos. So
him
who
and
knows what
Bezos
he's,
keep going back and forth.
yeah, who knows what they've funded and found out, you know what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm sure if they did, they wouldn't be telling us.
Oh, it's absolutely true. It'd probably cause a panic. Probably cause mass hysteria because people could not handle the truth.
Yeah,
But
totally.
it makes you wonder, why do they believe so heartedly that we live in a simulation rather than our own natural, world? And
Hmm.
yeah, it makes you wonder, what do they know? What do they know that we just do not know or have no way of
I'll uh,
knowing?
I'll be sure to tweet Elon and ask.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine just seeing your tweet. Hey, at Elon Musk, why do you believe we live in a simulation?
What do you know?
What do you know, bro?
General question. What do you know?
I wish that I understand why the government would want to keep something like that a secret. It would cause a lot of panic in our world. It would cause a lot of the logistics and a lot of the way of life that we've been living for millennia now to just go and abruptly change. And it would cause a lot of panic. But there are groups of people like you, like me, and like many others, not only in the horror community, but in general, that think that really anything's possible. So if we just know the truth, we could live with it. And I feel like there should be a
Yeah,
way where people like us can find out this stuff.
yeah, and I just think I get the concern that there could be like a societal collapse and our way of thinking is going to be shattered and religion will collapse and all this other stuff. But like, I would rather live, knowing the truth than just like persisting in a delusion, like I would far much rather know like an unpleasant reality that we're all simulations and that doesn't necessarily give my life any less meaning, because we're still living our lives, digital or otherwise, and we still affect people and or programs and how they feel, whatever you want to call it, whatever it ends up being. And frankly, I think even if it was to upset society, I mean, frankly, society is not really great right now anyway.
Hmm.
So maybe we could build a better one.
And I agree. If we just try, if we try, we could do it. Um,
Yeah.
but people don't want to try. And I think for some people though, if they did find out, that it would change, like maybe people would become lazier in a lot of ways because it'd be like, well, we live in a simulation. What's the point?
Mhm.
And I think that's maybe the common worry, that people would just stop being productive because they're like, well, we live in a simulation. Our lives don't matter. Blah blah blah. And then they wouldn't think about it like you do or I do, where even if we live in a simulation and we're just a few lines of code in a mass sea of code, we still think our lives are our lives, regardless if it means something or nothing at all. We're still living a life. we're still creating life. We're still enjoying life as we have it. So just enjoy
Hmm.
it regardless of what is really out there. And a lot of people cannot see it that way.
Yeah. This conversation reminds me of this movie that I saw a couple of years ago, and I just looked it up to make sure I got it right. So there's a movie called The Discovery, came out in 2017. It's got oh, what's his name? The guy who plays Marshall in How I Met Your Mother.
Okay.
uh, so that guy is in it, and it's basically about in the movie 2 years prior to when the movie takes place, they discover scientifically that the afterlife exists, and that there is something afterlife. I guess somehow whatever they prove that like your consciousness goes to somewhere else when you die. So the whole movie is about kind of how the world has dealt with that, and they have like a counter that's in like every room in like in all of the buildings, and it's always on TV. It's like a counter of how many suicides have taken place.
Hmm.
Because once people found out that there was an afterlife, some thought it was like heaven, some thought it was whatever. People started like killing themselves to go to the afterlife. And then there's people that are still left behind, kind of living the world, trying to live life as it used to be and kind of cope with this. And it's a very interesting movie. So for you and your listeners, I recommend checking out the movie The Discovery.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually type this to you now in Discord so I can not forget it because this actually sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, Jason Segel, that's the name of the actor. Jason
Okay.
Segel in it.
Now, what do you believe? Like we've already touched on that you don't really believe in religion and you're not very spiritual. Are you one of the people who believe in the simulation theory?
Um, I, yeah, so to be quite frank, yeah, I'm not religious
Hmm.
in any way, shape, or form. I did grow up Catholic and was baptized, but I've moved on from that. I would, I'm not a person that can definitively say one way or another, but if I, for example, had to pick between the Abrahamic religion's theory of life and creation over simulation, I would definitely think simulation theory is a more probable answer to our existence. But I'm not going to 100% say that we're in a simulation. But there are many things that point to that. Like, I don't remember what the stupid experiment is called, but there was an experiment that I learned about in high school in physics where they were shooting light like across a camera and like to like I think it was maybe the double slit experiment or something like that.
Okay.
But like they found out that whenever you observe the light through the camera or like if there's a human observer, then the light is seen as like a wave or a particle. But then when you record it without a human observer, it's the other way around. Like it switches to, I think it's a wave, and then if you observe it, it's a particle. So there's that thought that like, oh, that's kind of like how video games work. When the player character is not looking at something, it's less detailed, like a wave. But when they are looking at it, the game renders it in more detail, like a particle. And
Okay.
so, like, comparing how our digital worlds function, how we've built them so far, and how they keep progressing, and comparing it to our world in reality and the way physics and chemistry and everything works together and how particles behave, there is so much similarity, it's scary.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. Absolutely, because there is just so much just evidence that we could very well be living in a simulation. There is evidence of it, and it's right in front of our eyes. But you have to be willing to open your eyes to do it.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying definitively we're in a simulation, but it certainly, makes you ask questions and you have to look harder as you're saying. And it could very well just be like just the universe has these sort of constants that happen in everything we create or that's been created, and that we'll of course see similarities, and that just might be how it is.
Yeah.
But
No, man, I think it's very interesting to talk about stuff like this because people don't. People like to believe in one thing or another, but they don't want to stay in the middle. Where I stay is in the middle because I believe that anything could be possible because we do not know enough to just definitively say what could be.
Yeah, and anybody that tells you, listeners here on this call, that they 100% know fact or that something is true, like you were certainly came from one guy that was created by a god or what have you, and they say this is what you have to do, this is the truth, 100% fact, no question. They're probably trying to get something from you, whether it's your loyalty or your money. So just be weary, folks.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. Yeah, I think being open-minded is really the best way to put it because
Yeah, exactly.
if you're not open-minded, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing?
I want to
Being
apologize. I don't know if this was the direction you saw this conversation going, but
my podcast is meant to be going in any direction at any point. Um, I just like to talk, man, about anything and everything. Honestly. Um, so I really thank you for being here and talking about this random stuff with me, my man.
yeah, absolutely. Do you have any like final questions for me you want to get out to the world?
You know, I don't really try to ask too many questions, more so just talk, and we see how it goes from there. But I guess, what are some plans for your channel that we can all look forward to?
Yeah, so more immediately, actually tonight. I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but Friday the 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern time, I'm actually premiering a collaboration I did with As the Raven Dreams, Raven Reads, and Fearsome Hero, who were kind enough to offer their voice for this story in this collaboration. And the story is actually an original story by me.
Okay.
It's part one of what will probably be like a six-part series.
Okay.
And it's the first time I've ever tried writing sort of fiction, especially science fiction. So I'm very excited for the premiere. I'm excited to see how people will react to it. I've already posted the written story on Reddit, and it's
Okay.
got, a decent amount of likes on the r/cryosleep. I think it's like 97 upvotes. So there's been some positive feedback. So hoping that continues. And then, of course, I'll just continue focusing on sci-fi stories. I try to select specifically unique ones that aren't like narrated by every single creepypasta narrator ever, which
Okay.
makes it a little bit harder for me, in picking
Yeah.
stories. But
You know
yeah,
what? I have listened to a few of your videos now, and I gotta say, I really like them, and I really cannot wait to see where this new series goes. And I'll try to catch the premiere. I'm gonna try my hardest. It depends on my son, who's
sure.
very, he's 10 months old, so he's very hands-on, very need to
Yeah,
watch.
of
But
course.
I will try. Send me a link. Send me a link, and I'll even try to catch part of it if I can. Okay.
Yeah, no problem, man. Of course.
All right, my man. Thank you so much for being here. I plan on this going later, but some stuff has come up that need to deal with right away. So I do plan on having you back. So be watching your messages. Um, it's gonna be a lot longer too. So,
Yeah, I'd love to come back. I look forward to it.
all right. Well, thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, Magnetar, and everybody else. Please go like and subscribe to his channel and mine for more great content coming your way in the future. You are loved and you are validated. Thank you.